I always thought my 40th birthday would be memorable, but not like this. Not with my husband's tongue down my sister's throat in our kitchen while our guests mingled in the backyard. My name is Isabel, and until exactly 4 minutes ago, I was living what I thought was a pretty decent life. I'm a novelist. You might have read my books. And I just finished my latest manuscript. My husband, River, had insisted on throwing me a big birthday party, claiming 40 was too important to celebrate quietly. Surprise! The crowd had shouted when I'd arrived home from my afternoon spa appointment. River's gift. I'd smiled, hugged everyone, accepted congratulations on both my birthday and my upcoming book. My mother, Eva, had even behaved herself, limiting her usual criticisms about my career choices to just 2 subtle digs. But now, standing frozen in my own kitchen doorway, watching River press Kayla against our granite countertop, I felt my world implode. "Oh, God!" Kayla gasped, pushing River away when she spotted me. Her lipstick was smeared, her face flushed. "Izzy, How long?" My voice came out steadier than I expected. River stepped forward, hands raised like he was approaching a wild animal. "Isabel, let's talk about this privately." "How? Long?" "6 months," Kayla whispered, straightening her dress. The green one I'd bought her for Christmas. A laugh bubbled up from my chest, harsh, unfamiliar. 6 months. While I was writing my book. While we had Sunday dinners. While you helped me plan this party. "Sweetheart," my mother's voice came from behind me. "What's going on? The guests are asking." She stopped short, taking in the scene. I turned to face her, expecting shock, horror, anything. Instead, she pressed her lips together, looking more annoyed than surprised. "You knew," I realized, the words tasting like acid. "You knew about them." "Isabel, you've been so focused on your writing lately. River's been lonely, and Kayla—" "Don't you dare finish that sentence." My father's voice cut through the kitchen. He pushed past my mother, his face red with anger. "What the hell is wrong with all of you?" Marley appeared next to him, her eyes widening as she assessed the situation. Honey, let's get you out of here." "No!" I held up my hand. "No, I want to hear how my mother justifies this. How my sister explains fucking my husband. How River—" My voice cracked, and I hated myself for it. "I never meant to hurt you," Kayla said, tears streaming down her face. "It just happened." "Just happened? For 6 months?" I grabbed the nearest object, a wine glass, and hurled it against the wall. The crash brought several party guests running. "Isabel!" my mother hissed. "Control yourself. Think of the scandal." "The scandal?" I laughed again, louder this time. "You're worried about scandal? Fine. Let's give them something to talk about." I stormed into the backyard, where dozens of friends, colleagues, and family members stood chatting. My voice carried across the lawn. "Party's over, everyone. Sorry to cut it short, but I just caught my husband and my sister going at it in the kitchen. Feel free to take some cake home. I'm sure they'd love to share." Gasps and whispers erupted. River appeared behind me, grabbing my arm. "You're making a scene." I yanked away from him. "Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again." "Isabel," he pleaded, "let me explain." "Explain what?" "How you've been sleeping with my sister. How my mother apparently thinks that's perfectly fine, because I was busy working. Working on the book you encouraged me to write." Marley stepped between us. "River, back off. Now." She turned to me, her eyes fierce with loyalty. "Come on, you're staying with me tonight." As she led me toward her car, I caught sight of my niece, Audrey, standing frozen by the pool. Her face was pale, eyes wide with horror. For a moment, our gazes locked, and I saw my own pain reflected there. "I'm so sorry," I whispered, but she turned away. In Marley's car, the adrenaline finally wore off. My hands shook as I buckled my seatbelt. "I have your laptop," Marley said quietly. "Grabbed it before we left. Figured you might need it." I nodded, staring out the window as we pulled away from my house. The house River and I had bought together 5 years ago. The house where he'd been bringing my sister while I worked on my manuscript. You know what the worst part is? I said, my voice hollow. I dedicated that book to them. To River and Kayla, my supportive husband and beloved sister. Marley reached over and squeezed my hand. So write a new one. Something shifted in my chest, a spark of something darker than pain, more potent than anger. Yes, I said slowly. I think I will. As we drove away from the wreckage of my birthday party, I could already feel the words forming. This would be my best work yet. After all, they say write what you know. And now, I knew exactly what betrayal looked like. You're going to get sued, Marley said, peering over my shoulder at my laptop screen. 3 weeks had passed since my birthday disaster, and I hadn't left her guest room except for coffee and bathroom breaks. Not if I call it fiction. I kept typing, the words flowing faster than they ever had before. Besides, I'm changing the names. Changing River to Stream and Kayla to Michaela isn't exactly subtle, is. I paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Do you think I'm making a mistake? Marley sat on the edge of the bed, her expression serious. I think they deserve whatever's coming to them. But I also think you need to be smart about this. My phone buzzed. Another message from my mother. I'd blocked River and Kayla, but Eva was persistent. I ignored it. Did you know, I said, opening a folder on my desktop, that River's investment firm had 3 complaints of fraud filed against them last year? All quietly settled out of court. How did you? Public records. Amazing what you can find when you start digging. I pulled up another document. And remember when Kayla suddenly quit her job at that nonprofit? Turns out there were some irregularities in their accounting during her time there. Marley whistled low. You've been busy. I'm just getting started. I reached for my coffee, now cold. I've got a meeting tomorrow with River's former business partner. Robbie? The one who left the firm last year? The very same. He reached out after hearing about what happened. Said he has some stories I might find interesting. A knock at the door made us both jump. Marley went to answer it, and I heard murmured voices in the hallway. A moment later, she returned with my father. Dad? I closed my laptop. What are you doing here? Checking on my daughter. He looked tired, older than his 66 years. You haven't been answering your phone. I've been writing. He sat in Marley's desk chair, running a hand through his gray hair. Your mother says, I don't care what she says. The words came out sharper than intended. Sorry, but I really don't. Audrey's been asking about you. That hit hard. I missed my niece fiercely, but the thought of seeing her meant possibly seeing Kayla. How is she? Struggling. She's staying with me and your mother right now. Kayla and River. He trailed off. Moved in together? I finished for him. How convenient. Their affair can finally come out of the kitchen and into a proper bedroom. Isabel. His voice held a warning note. What are you planning? I met his eyes. I'm writing a book, Dad. That's what I do. This isn't just any book, though, is it? No. I opened my laptop again. It's the truth. Or at least, a version of it that won't get me sued. He was quiet for a long moment. Your mother thinks you're being vindictive. My mother thinks I should just forgive and forget. Pretend my husband and sister didn't destroy my life. I pulled up my notes. Did you know Kayla kept diaries? She left them at my house last year when she was staying over. Very interesting reading. Jesus is, Marley muttered. My father stood up. Just, be careful. Whatever you're doing, be careful. After he left, I started a new document. At the top, I typed, Things they don't want anyone to know. 1. River's questionable business practices. 2. Kayla's creative accounting. 3. The real reason Kayla's marriage ended. 4. River's gambling problem. Source, credit card statements. 5. The misunderstanding at Kayla's last job. 6. Their first kiss, according to Kayla's diary. 3 months before my birthday, not 6. This is getting dark, Marley commented, reading over my shoulder again. They started it. I added another item to the list. I'm just finishing it. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Audrey. Aunt Izzy, please call me. I miss you. I stared at the message until the screen went dark. The hurt in my chest twisted into something harder, colder. You know what the funny thing is? I said to Marley. I actually believed we were happy. River pushed me to write that last book, practically insisted I take those writing retreats. Now I know why. Gave him more time with her. What are you going to call it? Marley nodded at my laptop. The new book? I typed the title at the top of the page. Family Sins. Perfect, she said. Just remember, the best revenge isn't just about exposing secrets, it's about surviving them. I thought about River and Kayla, probably sleeping peacefully in their new life together. About my mother, choosing their side. About Audrey, caught in the middle of it all. I'm not just going to survive, I said, fingers returning to the keyboard. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who they really are. Every dirty secret, every lie, every betrayal. Marley squeezed my shoulder. Just make sure you're ready for the fallout. I was already typing again, the words sharp as knives. Chapter 1. The Perfect Life. That's what everyone thought we had. But perfection, like everything else in this story, was just another carefully crafted lie. The coffee shop was nearly empty when Robbie walked in, his expensive suit a stark contrast to the casual atmosphere. He'd lost weight since I'd last seen him at a company Christmas party, and the confident swagger was gone. Isabel! He slid into the booth across from me. You look different. Amazing what betrayal does for the complexion. I pushed a coffee toward him. Thanks for meeting me. He glanced around nervously. Look, what I'm about to tell you. River doesn't know I kept copies of everything. Everything? Robbie pulled out a USB drive. 3 years of altered financial reports, client accounts he manipulated, the real numbers behind those fraud settlements. He placed it on the table between us. Your husband's not just a cheater, he's a criminal. My hand shook slightly as I reached for the drive. Why are you giving me this? Because he screwed me too. Pushed me out of the firm when I threatened to go to the board. Robbie's smile was bitter. Said he'd make sure I never worked in finance again. And you just left? Had to. He had dirt on me too. But this? He tapped the drive. This is worse. Much worse. I slipped it into my purse. Why now? Heard about what happened. Figured you deserved to know the truth. He leaned forward. But there's more. Did you know about the connection between River's firm and your sister's old nonprofit? My coffee turned sour in my stomach. What connection? The nonprofit was a client. River managed their endowment fund. When money started disappearing, guess who was handling their books? Kayla. Bingo, they covered it up together. That's probably how the affair started. I pulled out my notebook. Tell me everything. An hour later, I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel. My phone rang. Audrey's number. This time I answered. Aunt Izzy? Hey, sweetheart. My voice softened automatically. Mom's getting married, to River. They just told me. The steering wheel creaked under my grip. When? 3 months. They want it to be quick, before... She hesitated. Before my book comes out? You're really writing it? Her voice cracked. Mom's terrified. Grandma keeps saying you're trying to destroy the family. The family was destroyed the moment they decided to betray me. But what about me? Audrey's words hit like a punch. Did you think about what this would do to me? Before I could answer, another voice came through the phone, Kayla's. Audrey, who are you talking to? The call ended abruptly. I started the car, hands shaking as I pulled out of the parking lot. My phone buzzed with a text from Marley. Where are you? Your mother's here. Perfect. Just perfect. I found them in Marley's living room, Eva perched on the edge of the sofa like she might catch something from it. Mother? I dropped my purse, the USB drive heavy inside it. To what do I owe the pleasure? Stop this nonsense, Isabel. Eva stood, smoothing her perfectly pressed slacks. This vindictive little book of yours needs to end. Or what? Or you'll lose your family forever. I laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Lose my family? You mean the sister who slept with my husband? The mother who knew about it and said nothing? That family? You were never there. Eva's composure cracked. Always writing, always working. River needed— Don't you dare finish that sentence. Marley stepped between us. Get out of my house. This doesn't concern you. Like hell it doesn't. Marley's voice was ice. You want to talk about family? I'm her family. I was here when she fell apart. Where were you? Eva gathered her purse, chin high. You'll regret this, Isabel. When you're alone with nothing but your bitter words for company, you'll regret it. After she left, I pulled out the USB drive. Want to see what real regret looks like? Marley and I spent the next 3 hours going through Robbie's files. With each document, each revelation, the story grew darker. Holy shit, Marley whispered, staring at a spreadsheet. They were stealing from charities? Among other things. I was already typing. But here's the best part. Remember that family scandal 10 years ago? When Uncle Jack lost everything in that bad investment? Yeah? I pulled up another document. Guess who handled that investment? No way. Way, River and Kayla didn't just betray me. They've been betraying everyone for years. I sat back, the pieces finally falling into place. They deserve each other. And they're getting married in 3 months. I smiled, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Perfect timing. My publisher says the book can be ready in 2. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Audrey. Please don't do this. I stared at the message, thinking about my niece caught in the crossfire. But then I remembered Robbie's files, the years of deception, my mother's words. I'm sorry, Audrey, I whispered, and began to write. Your legal exposure is minimal, my publisher's lawyer said, reviewing the manuscript. The disclaimer clearly states it's a work of fiction. Names and identifying details have been changed. But everyone will know who it's about, Marley pointed out. They can know, they just can't prove it in court. The lawyer closed his laptop. Ms. Boyd, you've done your homework. Every accusation is backed by public record or documented evidence. I'd been working non-stop for 6 weeks, fueled by coffee and rage. The manuscript was nearly complete, each chapter more damning than the last. There's a family barbecue this weekend, Marley said after the lawyer left. Your father called. He thinks you should come. Oh, why? So my mother can defend them again? So you can show them you're not hiding. She was right. I needed to face them eventually. Besides, Audrey would be there. The familiar drive to my parents' house felt surreal. Cars lined the street. Apparently, the whole family had turned out for this little drama. I smoothed my new dress. Black, fitted, expensive, armor. Conversation stopped as I walked through the gate to the backyard. My mother stood by the grill with my Aunt Linda, both of them freezing mid-sentence. Kayla was nowhere in sight, but River was there, looking uncomfortable in the corner. Isabel. My father hurried over, relief clear on his face. You came. I came. Audrey appeared from the house, stopping short when she saw me. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then she ran forward, throwing her arms around me. I missed you, she whispered. Missed you too, kiddo. Well, isn't this cozy? Kayla's voice cut through the moment. She stood in the doorway, one hand protectively over her stomach. No. Oh, no. That's right, she said, watching my face. I'm pregnant. Congratulations. You're going to be an aunt. Again. The world tilted sideways. Marley's hand gripped my elbow, steadying me. How far along? My voice sounded distant. 3 months. Kayla smiled, sweet as poison. We wanted to wait to tell everyone, but since you're here— 3 months. Which meant— You were pregnant at my birthday party, I said. When I caught you in the kitchen, when you were drinking champagne and telling me how sorry you were. The smile faltered. Behind her, River stepped forward. Isabel. Don't. I held up my hand. Just don't. Eva appeared, positioning herself between us. This is supposed to be a family gathering. Can we please be civil? Civil? I laughed. Like how you were civil when you covered up their affair? Or how about when you helped hide the money they stole from Uncle Jack? The backyard went silent. What is she talking about? Uncle Jack stood up from his chair. Eva? She's being dramatic, my mother said quickly. Isabel, you're upset, I understand. But these accusations are all true. I pulled out my phone, pulling up Robbie's files. Want to see the proof? I have copies of everything. The fraudulent investments, the charity funds, all of it. You're lying, Kayla snapped. Am I? Should we ask your old boss at the nonprofit? I had a fascinating conversation with him last week. River's face went pale. You talked to Marcus? I talked to a lot of people. I looked around the yard, at all the faces watching us. And everything they told me is going in my book. You can't. Kayla stepped forward. I'm pregnant. Think about the baby. Like you thought about me? I turned to Audrey, who stood frozen nearby. I'm sorry you're caught in this, sweetheart, but they need to face what they've done. Isabel, my father's voice was quiet. Are you sure about this? I met his eyes. Read the files, Dad. All of them. Then ask me that again. Eva grabbed my arm. You're just jealous. River chose Kayla because you were never there. Always working, always too busy for your marriage. I was working because River insisted. The words exploded out of me. He pushed me to take those writing retreats, encouraged me to focus on my career. Now I know why, so he could screw my sister in our kitchen. That's enough, River shouted. No, it's not enough. Not even close. I pulled away from my mother. The book comes out in 6 weeks, right before your wedding. Consider it my gift to you both. You'll destroy this family, Kayla said, tears in her eyes. No, you did that. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth. I turned to leave, but Audrey caught my hand. Wait. I want to read it. Before it comes out. I deserve that much. Looking at her face, so young, so hurt, I nearly wavered. But then I remembered Kayla's smile, my mother's accusations, River's betrayal. I'll send you a copy, I promised. The truth might hurt, but lies hurt more. Trust me, I know. Walking back to my car, I heard the chaos erupting behind me. Questions, accusations, denials. The foundation of lies beginning to crack. Good. Let it all come crashing down. Your sister's old diary is a gold mine, Marley said, flipping through the worn pages. Listen to this. Sometimes I think about how different my life would be if I'd been born first. Everything comes so easily to Isabel. I looked up from my laptop. What's the date on that entry? 2 years ago. Marley turned another page. There's more. River looked at me today the way he used to look at her. I know it's wrong, but… Stop! My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I can't hear anymore. A knock at the door made us both jump. Audrey stood in the doorway, her school backpack clutched to her chest. Mom doesn't know I'm here, she said quickly. Can we talk? I gestured her in while Marley quietly excused herself. Audrey sat on the edge of the bed, looking smaller than her 16 years. I read the manuscript you sent, she said. Is it all true? Every word. She pulled something from her backpack, a leather-bound notebook. Then you should have this too. Mom's current diary. She left it out yesterday. My hands shook as I took it. Audrey, you shouldn't… No, I should. Her voice hardened. I found out she's been lying to me too, about Dad's accident, about why we lost our house. It wasn't bad luck or the economy like she said. It was her and River, wasn't it? I nodded slowly. They manipulated the investments. Your dad never stood a chance. I always wondered why she wasn't more upset when he died. Audrey wiped her eyes. Now I know. She already had River. The diary felt heavy in my hands. Are you sure you want me to use this? I want the truth. All of it. She stood up. Even if it hurts. After she left, I opened the diary. The first entry was dated 3 months before my birthday. River kissed me today. Finally. We've been dancing around this for months. He says he'll leave her after the book launch. Says he never really loved her. My phone rang, Kayla's number. After weeks of blocking her, I answered. Missing something? I asked. You bitch? Her voice shook. How dare you turn my daughter against me? You did that yourself. Every lie, every manipulation. I'm pregnant. Do you want to stress me into losing this baby too? I froze. Two? She went quiet. Then, come to the house. We need to talk. 20 minutes later, I stood in her living room, the home she now shared with my husband. Photos of them covered the walls, their happiness mocking me. I lost a baby, Kayla said, sitting heavily on the couch. 6 years ago, River's baby. The room spun. What? It was a brief thing. We ended it. He chose you. She laughed bitterly. He always chose you, until now. 6 years ago, I said slowly, when I was on that month-long book tour. The one you both insisted I couldn't miss. We were weak. It was a mistake. A mistake? I pulled out her current diary. Like all these mistakes? She went pale. Where did you get that? Does it matter? The truth's coming out, Kayla. All of it. The affairs, the fraud, everything. You'll destroy us all. You destroyed us. You and River and everyone who helped cover this up. I opened the diary. Should I read it? The part where you planned to seduce him at my birthday party? Where you deliberately got pregnant to trap him? She lunged for the diary, but I stepped back. That's private. Privacy? You want to talk about privacy after fucking my husband in my kitchen? I loved him first, she screamed. Before you, before everything. He was mine first. We stared at each other. The truth finally laid bare. First love doesn't justify destroying lives, I said quietly. It doesn't excuse what you did to me, to Audrey, to everyone. Please, she whispered. The baby will grow up knowing exactly who their parents are. I headed for the door. The book comes out in 3 weeks. Better start preparing your explanations. Isabel, wait! She grabbed my arm. What do you want? Money? I'll give you anything. I looked at her hand on my arm, at the engagement ring that had once been mine. I want justice. And now, thanks to this diary, I'll get it. Mom? Audrey stood in the doorway, eyes wide. What do you mean you loved him first? Kayla dropped my arm. Audrey, honey, don't. Audrey's voice cracked. Just don't lie anymore. I can't take it. I left them there, the sound of their argument following me out. In my car, I pulled out my phone and dialed my publisher. I have the final piece, I said. The real story behind everything. How long will it take to add a new chapter? We'll make it work, she replied. This book is going to explode. Looking back at the house, I saw Audrey running out, tears streaming down her face. Kayla followed, calling after her. Yes, I said, it will. The church looked like something from a fairy tale, all white flowers and twinkling lights. I sat in my car across the street, watching guests arrive for River and Kayla's wedding. My book had been released that morning. You don't have to do this, Marley said from the passenger seat. We could just go home, open some wine. Look. I nodded toward the entrance where my mother was greeting guests. In her hand was a copy of Family Sins. Someone's been busy, Marley muttered. How many books did you have delivered? 1 for every guest. Left them on their seats before the ceremony. I checked my lipstick in the mirror. Ready? We crossed the street, my heels clicking on the pavement. Conversation stopped as we approached. Eva's face went pale. You weren't invited, she hissed. Funny, considering I paid for half of this. I gestured at the decorations. River used our joint account. Didn't even bother to hide it. People were opening their books now. Whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. Is this true? Uncle Jack held up his copy. About the investment fraud? Every word, I said. Check your records. I'm sure you'll find some interesting transactions. More guests were arriving, more books being opened. I caught snippets of conversation. The charity money. 6 years ago? 2 affairs? The pregnancy. Eva grabbed my arm. Stop this, please. Why? Worried about what people will think when they read about your role in all this? What role? My father appeared, his own copy in hand. Eva, what is she talking about? Page 156. I said. The part about how Mom helped cover up their first affair. How she encouraged River to send me on those book tours so they could be together. Dad's face went gray as he flipped to the page. Inside the church, I could see Kayla in her wedding dress, pacing. River stood with his groomsmen, looking increasingly nervous as more guests read rather than took their seats. Audrey appeared in her bridesmaid's dress, makeup streaked with tears. You really came? Of course I did. I held out my arms and she fell into them. I'm sorry it had to be like this. I'm not. She pulled back. Mom's been throwing up all morning. Says it's morning sickness, but it's the truth making her sick, Marley said. More commotion at the entrance. Robbie had arrived, carrying his own stack of documents. Anyone want to see the original financial records? Got copies for everyone. River burst out of the church. What the hell is going on? Justice, I said simply. Or karma. Take your pick. He grabbed a book from a nearby guest, face darkening as he read. You can't publish this. Already did. This morning. It's already #1 on 3 bestseller lists. You'll ruin us. Like you ruined me? I stepped closer. How's it feel, River? Watching everything fall apart? Kayla appeared in the doorway, her white dress a stark contrast to her pale face. The ceremony was supposed to start 10 minutes ago. Why isn't anyone sitting down? They're a bit busy, Marley said, reading about how you seduced your sister's husband. Twice. These are lies, Kayla screamed, but her voice shook. Really? I pulled out her diary. Should I read some excerpts? Compare them to the book? Eva tried one last time. Isabel, please. Think of the baby. Like you thought of me? I turned to address the crowd. Everything in that book is true. Every betrayal, every theft, every lie. I have proof of all of it. And now, so do you. The whispers had become a roar. Uncle Jack was on his phone, presumably calling his lawyer. River's business partners huddled in a corner, their faces grim. My father stood apart, still reading, his hands shaking. The wedding's off, River announced suddenly. What? Kayla grabbed his arm. No, you can't. It's over. He looked at me. You win. Win? I laughed. This was never about winning. This was about truth. Audrey stepped forward. Mom, is it true? About Dad's accident? Did you and River really? Don't, Kayla pleaded. Baby, please. I'm going to live with Grandpa, Audrey said. I can't even look at you right now. The perfect wedding dissolved into chaos. Guests left in angry groups, clutching their books and documents. Eva collapsed into a pew, while my father stood over her, demanding answers. River disappeared into the church, leaving Kayla crying in her white dress. Ready to go? Marley asked softly. I looked at the destruction around me, the destroyed decorations, the scattered flowers, the torn-apart families. Part of me felt sick, but a stronger part felt free. Almost. I walked over to Kayla. The truth hurts, doesn't it? She looked up at me, mascara streaking her face. Are you happy now? No, I said honestly, but I'm done letting you hurt me. I turned and walked away, leaving my sister, my mother, and my old life behind. In my car, Marley squeezed my hand. Where to? I started the engine. Somewhere new, somewhere true. The aftermath hit like a tsunami. Within days of the wedding disaster, River's firm was under investigation. 3 major clients had filed lawsuits. The charity board where Kayla had worked demanded a full audit. Your book is everywhere, Marley said, dropping a stack of newspapers on my coffee table. You're trending on Twitter. I picked up the top paper. The headline screamed, Best-selling author exposes family fraud in explosive new novel. My phone rang. Audrey again. She'd been staying with my father since the wedding. They're getting divorced, she said without preamble. River and Mom. He says he never meant for any of this to happen. Of course he didn't, I sighed. How are you holding up? Grandpa's helping me look into Dad's accident. We found some documents. Her voice cracked. They really did kill him, didn't they? With those fake investments? I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Don't be. I needed to know the truth. She paused. Mom lost the baby. The news hit harder than expected. Despite everything, that was still my niece or nephew. When? 2 days ago. Stress, the doctor said. Audrey's voice turned bitter. She keeps saying it's your fault. A knock at my door interrupted us. Through the peephole, I saw Kayla. I have to go, I told Audrey. Call you later. I opened the door. My sister looked terrible. Pale, thin, defeated. Come to threaten me with another lawsuit? I asked. I came to tell you congratulations. Her voice was hollow. You won. You destroyed everything. Happy now? You really don't get it, do you? I let her in, if only to avoid a scene in the hallway. This isn't about winning. No? Then what was the point of humiliating us at our wedding? Of exposing every private detail? Private, I laughed. Like when you and River were private about your affair? Or private like when you helped him steal from our uncle? From charities? We made mistakes. Mistakes? I grabbed the nearest newspaper. You call this a mistake? You and River manipulated investments that led to my brother-in-law's death. Audrey's father died because of your mistakes. She collapsed onto my couch. I never meant for James to die. The investments weren't supposed to fail that badly. But they did. And instead of coming clean, you started sleeping with River again. He said he loved me. She wrapped her arms around herself. Said we could finally be together. And the baby? Her face crumpled. I lost it. Are you happy about that too? Before I could answer, my father burst in, followed by Uncle Jack and 2 men in suits. Dad? What's going on? These gentlemen are from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit, Dad said. They have some questions about River's firm. Kayla went even paler. I need a lawyer. You need more than that, Uncle Jack said grimly. They found the offshore accounts, all of them. The agent stepped forward. Ms. Boyd, we need you to come with us. I watched them lead my sister away in handcuffs, her mascara running down her face. She looked back once. I really did love him, she whispered. I know, I said. That's what makes it worse. After they left, Dad sank into a chair. River turned himself in this morning. He's cooperating with the investigation. Of course he is, I said bitterly. Saving himself again. Your mother, he rubbed his face. She knew more than she admitted. About everything. Is she being charged too? Not yet. But she's not handling any of this well. He looked at me. Was it worth it? All this pain? Marley, who'd been quietly watching, spoke up. The pain was already there. Isabel just brought it into the light. My phone buzzed. A text from Audrey. They just arrested Mom. I don't know how to feel. I texted back. Come over, we'll figure it out together. The media's going crazy, Marley said, checking her phone. Your book just hit #1 on the New York Times list. Funny how truth sells better than fiction, I said. Dad stood up. I should go check on your mother. She's not well. After he left, Marley poured us both a glass of wine. So what now? I looked around my apartment, at the newspapers screaming about scandal, at the family photos I still hadn't taken down, at my laptop where my next book was already taking shape. Now? I took a sip of wine. Now we deal with the fallout. Help Audrey heal. Try to salvage what's left of the truth. And River? Kayla? They'll get what they deserve. I picked up my book, running my fingers over the cover. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying people. It's about exposing who they really are. My phone buzzed again, this time with a news alert. Prominent investment firm under federal investigation. Multiple arrests made. Truth hurts, Marley said softly. Yes, I agreed, thinking of Kayla's tears, River's surrender, my mother's breakdown. But lies hurt more. You should read this part, Audrey said, curled up on my couch with a manuscript. It's beautiful. I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been answering emails from my publisher. Which part? The new ending, where you talk about forgiveness. She cleared her throat and read, Some wounds never heal completely, but they can become bearable. The trick isn't to forget, but to remember, without letting the pain define you. Too philosophical? No, it's perfect. She set down the pages. Mom's sentencing is tomorrow. I nodded. The trials had been swift, the evidence overwhelming. River had taken a plea deal, turning state's evidence. Kayla had fought the charges until the end. Will you come with me? Audrey asked. Dad would have wanted you there. My doorbell rang before I could answer. My father stood outside, looking older, but somehow lighter. Your mother wants to see you, he said, before the sentencing. I hadn't spoken to Eva since the wedding. Why? She's ready to tell the truth, all of it. He sat heavily on my couch. About why she helped them, about the money she took. You're going, Audrey asked. We'll go together, I decided. The retirement community where my mother now lived was quiet, peaceful. She sat in a garden chair, staring at nothing. Isabel. Her voice was different, softer, without the sharp edges. You look well. You wanted to talk? I wanted to say I'm sorry. She gestured to the chair beside her. Not just for what happened with River and Kayla, for everything, for never being the mother you needed. I sat carefully. Why did you help them? Because Kayla was always more like me. Desperate for love, willing to do anything for it. She twisted her hands together. I saw myself in her, and I saw your father in you, strong, principled, better than us. That's not an excuse. No, it's not. She looked at Audrey. I failed both of you, all of you. I let my bitterness poison everything. Grandma, Audrey said quietly, did you know about my dad? About what they did to him? Ava's face crumpled. I suspected, but I didn't want to know for sure. It was easier to pretend. My father touched my shoulder. The prosecutors want to talk to her about her role in the fraud. I'll tell them everything, Eva said. It's time. Back home that evening, I finished the final chapter of my new book. Not about revenge this time, but about healing. Marley brought dinner and wine. How'd it go with your mom? Better than expected. I closed my laptop. She's finally telling the truth. Speaking of truth, Marley handed me an envelope. This came for you. Inside was a letter from River, postmarked from prison. Isabel, your book was right about everything except one thing. I did love you. That's what made betraying you so unforgivable. I couldn't live up to who you were, so I tried to drag you down instead. I'm sorry, River. You okay? Marley asked. Actually, yes. I put the letter aside. For the first time in a long time, I really am. Audrey curled up next to me on the couch. Me too. It still hurts, but we're not letting the pain define us? I quoted my own words back to her. She smiled. Exactly. My phone lit up with a news alert. Final sentencing in investment fraud case tomorrow. Multiple victims to testify. Will you speak? Marley asked. No. I looked at the manuscript on my coffee table. I've already said everything I needed to say. Audrey picked up my new book. What are you calling this one? After the Truth. I took it from her, running my fingers over the title page. It's about what happens when the revenge is over, and you have to figure out who you are in the aftermath. Who are you? She asked softly. I thought about Eva's confession, River's letter, Kayla's tears, about the strength I'd found in the wreckage of their betrayal. I'm someone who survived, I said. We both are. The doorbell rang again. This time it was my father, carrying a box of old family photos. Found these while cleaning out the house, he said. Thought you might want to help me sort through them. Make new memories to go with the old ones. We spent the evening doing just that. Audrey, Dad, Marley, and me. Laughing at old hairstyles, crying over forgotten moments, healing together. Look at this one. Audrey held up a photo of Kayla and me as children, arms around each other, smiling. Before everything went wrong. Keep it, I said. Remember the good parts, too. Later, after everyone had gone, I added one final line to my manuscript. The truth doesn't just destroy. Sometimes, if you're brave enough to face it, it sets you free. I hit send on the email to my publisher, then walked to my window. The city lights sparkled below, full of possibilities. Tomorrow, justice would be served. But tonight, in this moment, I was already free.